Hi there, my name's Jasper, and today I'm going to talk about my experience being dyslexic so that you and other people on the internet can understand better how to write for people who are dyslexic and what all it affects, because it doesn't just affect the things that people generally talk about. The first thing that I want to touch on is the science behind it. This is also written in my blog post, which I'll link below if you're on YouTube, but if you came to this video from the blog post, then I'm also going to be touching on some other things later on. So the science behind it goes, a dyslexic brain doesn't go to A to B. It rewires through different parts of the brain. So while some people might be reasoning just in their prefrontal cortex, other people, like dyslexic people, might have it go to their reptilian brain, or it might go to Wernicke's area, or to the vision center of the brain. It might bounce around to try and remember things differently, to try and recall information differently, and fundamentally we just understand the world the way it is a little bit differently from other people, just because of the way that our brain is wired. So some people who are dyslexic happen to be really good at math, and others happen to be really skilled in the arts, just because of the way that our brains are rewired. So you'll find a lot of famous people are dyslexic. I'm personally not very good at math and writing. I'm better at the arts and whatnot. For math, I find myself making a lot of simple mistakes that even when I double and triple check myself, I just fundamentally can't understand. I never completely learned my times tables because just the slightest thing in my brain might have me remember things completely differently, completely wrong. I'm much better at statistics than I am at calculus. I never learned how to divide longhand, things like that. But other things I had difficulty with as a kid was just learning how to write in general. Some people were teaching me how to write cursive at the same time where I was still trying to figure out my capitals and lower cases. I remember in 4th grade having a full-on fight with my teacher about whether or not you capitalize I when referring to yourself. Of course they were right, but I never encountered that because even when I read, it's not something that I can pay attention to. See, when I'm reading a book, my eyes will see just the first couple of letters and then fill in the blank as to what the rest of the word says. So sometimes I'll read a word and then my brain will come up with something similar and I won't even realize the mistake. That's why writing is so weird for me, is because I can fully understand the story and I can try to write it out, but sometimes my sentence structures are just completely wrong. And of course my spelling is so bad that I broke spell check. I'm not even going to put air quotes around it. I legitimately got a message on Word saying it was no longer showing the little red line under everything because I had too many spelling errors. Luckily Grammarly's fixed a lot of that for me. Not sponsored, but I wish it was. But aside from these very generic, basic, dyslexic things, it affects a lot of other places in my life. I've been told that dyslexia is on the autism spectrum, so I'll exhibit some behaviors that are a little autistic, like not looking at myself in the mirror. I really hate eye contact and I won't like looking at other people. It might just be a side effect of low self-esteem as a kid. I still have some social anxiety related to other people and thinking I don't have enough skill and things along those lines. On the other hand, I am very creative, not just in an artistic way, like not just in drawing and painting, but in problem solving. As an example, me and my dad would be picking up plastic bottles that fell out of the recycling into the garage. And instead of holding the plastic garbage bag like my dad was, I took extra time and I put the plastic bag over a box so that I could just throw the bottles in and didn't have to hold open the bag. And it saved a lot of time and made it a lot more fun and easy. So there's a lot of things that I'll do in my day-to-day life that are a little bit backwards or a little bit wrong. I get a lot of information switched in my mind in general, so I'll get dates wrong all the time. I don't have any sense of time at all. Sometimes I think 2 hours has passed and it's actually been 5, or it's only been 30 minutes. I'm not exactly sure if that's related to dyslexia, but I never learned how to read a traditional clock, so I've never paid attention to the time very much. So I think it might be a little bit related. My dyslexia definitely flares up when talking to other people though, because sometimes my sentence order will be off and sometimes my word choice will be wrong, or I'll really struggle to come up with the right word to say. I'll think of other related words or words that sound similar, but not be able to come up with the correct one. It makes it very hard for me to understand people sometimes, and when I'm reading, I definitely notice myself just skipping over the words I don't know instead of stopping to look them up. See, when I was younger, a lot of teachers told me just to look up words in the dictionary when I couldn't spell them because they didn't fully understand that I was dyslexic. The problem was, if you haven't picked up a dictionary recently, that you have to know the first 3 letters in order to find the word. Sometimes if it was an I and I'd be looking under E, sometimes the second letter would be off, sometimes the third letter would be off. Sometimes I'd have no clue at all how it was spelled, and I'd be looking through and I would think that these 3 different words could all possibly be pronounced in the same way as the word I was looking for. I still spell words exactly as they sound, and for the most part that works pretty well for me, but there's a lot of words that I will just throw random letters in. For a long time I put an E at the end of hello because it just, it doesn't make, it's an O sound, but you hold it a little bit longer, so I thought there might be another letter there. And there's a lot of words that I still get mixed up, and a lot of tricks I use to remember different words. So there, when referring to someone else's possession, has an I in it because it's that person's, like I as in me, but them. It doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense to me. And so I use a lot of these weird tricks to remember things. Letter acronyms I will remember by filling in words, which I feel is a fairly common way to do things, but I have a great memory for random stuff. I can remember the most bizarre facts, and I have no idea why. I think it's partly because of the way my brain is wired. If I have an image to go along with something, a song to go along with something, I'll remember it really well. And so that's how a lot of my memorization techniques have been used growing up. I know all of the states in alphabetical order, and one day in math class I memorized the alphabet backwards just because I could never remember where R was when looking it up in the dictionary, because it's closer to the end than it is to the beginning. In case you're wondering what that sounds like, because a lot of people ask me. ZYXWVUTSRQPOMN LKJHDFEDCVA. It's a lot faster than singing the song. In high school, I was not a great student. I got a few A's, but I was mostly B and C, and I think that's primarily because of the busy work. Whereas when I went to college, I became a straight A student because as soon as you give me parameters, I'm very good at filling it in and almost BSing my way through a lot of school projects because I've had to come up with so many brain tricks, mind tricks, in order to weasel my way around things. That's another thing, is I get common sayings mixed up a lot, so like how I just said brain tricks instead of mind tricks. They're both the same thing, but you wouldn't understand if I said brain tricks as easily as mind tricks. In the same way, I'll sometimes say this evening when referring to something in the afternoon, or this morning when talking about something in the afternoon, just because of either my lack of sense of time or just me using random words instead of other ones. A great dyslexic once said, I actually don't know if he was dyslexic, synonyms are words you use when you don't know how to spell the one you thought of. I don't know how to spell so many words, and my vocabulary would be so much wider in my writing if I could figure out how to spell those things. But sometimes spell check doesn't get them. When I was growing up, I did a lot of text-to-speech apps and like Dragon reading software or whatever that was in order to write. I've always been a writer. I remember being in 3rd grade and trying to write stories, but I couldn't read until almost 6th or 7th grade. All of the media I took in was video format, watching movies, watching TV shows, those kinds of things. And so I wrote entirely in camera angles growing up. I would write, the camera zooms in on the billboard and that says the title, blah blah blah, and the camera sweeps down over the car and zooms up on Kathy and whoever who are talking. And then I actually used a color system in order to say who had which line, instead of saying Kathy said, so like Kathy would be green and Samantha would be blue, and I'd have a chart at the top of the document that said all of the different characters and what color they coordinated with. And then I just used the highlighter tool to light the whole body of text like that. And that's how I wrote my first 100 pages. I hope that some of those anecdotes help you to either understand people who are dyslexic better or write dyslexics better. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below. I'll try to respond to you as soon as possible. If you're watching on my blog, sometimes WordPress hides comments from me, so I'm really sorry if I don't get back to you immediately. And other than that, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.